Human pulls alien girl from a freefall drop, but human realizes gravity changes only around her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. Ethan Cole felt the deck shudder beneath his boots an instant before the floor gave way. No warning siren, just a metallic groan and the sickening lurch of the Highcliffe Research Station losing another support beam. Dust drifted sideways, not down, a strange shimmer in the air like heat bending light. He didn't think, he just moved. A flash of blue skin dropped through the fractured platform ahead. Lyra Vesh fell without falling, her body drifting in jerks, slow for a heartbeat, then too fast, the way objects move in broken dreams. Ethan lunged, the sharp edge of the deck cutting into his palms as he threw himself forward and caught her wrist. Her skin was cool, almost weightless, and for a split second his whole arm felt lighter, as if someone had turned gravity down just for him. The cable on his belt strained, metal hissing against its housing as the drop yanked them both toward the open canyon. A mile of red stone and wind roared below, but Ethan locked his grip, teeth clenched, boots scraping for something to hold. "I've got you," he breathed, though the words came out thin in the high-altitude air. Lyra looked up at him, wide silver eyes reflecting the warped motion around her. Tools, dust, bolts. Everything near her hung in a strange sway, like the world couldn't decide which direction was down. "You shouldn't touch me," she whispered, her voice shaking as lightly as the objects floating near her shoulder. "It gets worse when someone's close." "Yeah." Ethan grunted as another shiver ran through the floor beneath him. "Good thing I'm stubborn." Her wrist felt almost buoyant in his grasp. His own weight seemed to shift unpredictably, boots lifting, then slamming back as gravity snapped to normal. She wasn't making the world lighter, only the space around her. Only her. And now him. The cable slipped half an inch. Ethan pulled her up another inch. Slow. Controlled. Breathing steady even as the canyon wind tugged at his jacket. When her other hand reached the ledge, he shifted his weight and hauled her onto the broken floor with a force that sent both of them rolling back from the drop. The moment his hands left her, gravity snapped back to normal. Bolts clattered to the ground. A wrench slammed down beside them. Lyra curled slightly, holding her arms close, as if trying to make herself smaller, safer for the world. Ethan steadied his breath, dust settling in his hair. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded once, almost ashamed. "It's my fault the station keeps failing. My field, it interferes with everything. I should have been sent away." Ethan shook his head, still catching his breath. "You were falling. That's all I needed to know." And for the first time since the collapse began, Lyra looked at him not with fear, but with something closer to disbelief, as if no one had ever said those words to her before. Dust still hovered in the air as Ethan steadied himself, feeling the normal pull of gravity settle back over the fractured platform. His palms tingled where he had gripped Lyra's wrist, a faint echo of the strange lightness that had surged through him moments earlier. Lyra pushed a loose strand of silvery hair behind her ear, her expression tight as she tried to stand. The deck beneath her boots responded oddly, a slight ripple moving through scattered tools as if they could not decide whether to rise or fall. Ethan noticed instantly. "Easy," he said, stepping closer but stopping just short of touching her. "Your field is still unstable." Lyra's eyes lowered with a quiet resignation. "It always is. My presence disrupts everything mechanical. The station was never meant to hold someone like me." She took a slow breath, and for a moment the floating bolts around her drifted downward, settling an inch before lifting again in a gentle wobble. Ethan watched the pattern, mind working the way it always did when systems behaved in ways they should not. "Is it tied to your pulse?" he asked. "Or emotion?" Lyra hesitated, surprised he was not retreating from her. "Both," she admitted softly. "When I am afraid, it spikes. When I am calm, it steadies. But it never turns off." Another tremor rolled through the station, a low hum vibrating through the flooring. A distant warning light flickered amber along the overhead rail, signaling structural stress. Ethan glanced at it, jaw tightening. We should move. If the support beams keep flexing, the whole east wing could detach. Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. Then you should leave me here. Ethan met her gaze, steady and unshaken. That is not happening. He offered his hand, slow and deliberate, letting her choose. Lyra stared at his open palm, the human warmth and weight contrasting everything unpredictable about her own presence. Finally, she placed her hand in his. The shift in gravity was immediate. Ethan felt a soft lift in his chest, like stepping onto a gently rising elevator. Loose debris floated an inch off the floor, but he did not flinch. See, he said quietly. I am still here. Something in Lyra's expression softened, a small crack in the wall she kept around herself. Together, they moved down the slanted hallway, Ethan adjusting to the intermittent lightness with calm, controlled steps. The higher they climbed, the more the wind outside pressed against the metal frame of the structure, the windows rattling in protest. As they approached the central junction, the station's internal map flickered on a nearby console. Half the display scrambled from interference. Your field is doing that, Ethan asked. Lyra nodded. It reacts to electrical systems first. Sometimes they flicker. Sometimes they fail. Ethan studied the distorted map. Then we work around it. Control room is 3 levels up. If we can stabilize the gravity anchors, the station will stop tearing itself apart. Lyra's voice carried a note of disbelief. You want to fix the anchors while I am here? Most engineers refuse to stand in the same room with me. Ethan gave a small shrug. Well, I am not most engineers. For a brief moment, Lyra almost smiled. The floor beneath them tilted slightly, another reminder of the failing supports, but Ethan kept his grip on her steady. The ripple in gravity eased, as if responding to the steadiness of his presence. Outside the narrow window, the canyon stretched wide beneath a rising front of storm clouds, the wind sweeping across the red cliffs in spiraling currents. Lyra's gaze lingered on it with a quiet sadness. The world pushes back on me, she whispered. Ethan glanced at her, then at the faint lift of dust around her boots, drawn upward as if by some unseen thread. Maybe it is not pushing you back, he said gently. Maybe it just has not figured out how to hold you yet. Lyra looked at him, something unspoken flickering in her silver eyes as the hallway lights steadied for the first time since the collapse began. Icy wind pressed against the narrow hallway windows as Ethan guided Lyra toward the next stairwell, their steps steady despite the faint lift tugging at his boots every time her emotions spiked. The lights overhead dimmed again, flickering in a soft pulse that matched the rising tension in her breath. The anchors should be near the top junction, Ethan murmured, watching the floor tilt another inch to the west. If we stabilize the gravity regulators, the station will stop shifting. Lyra kept her gaze down, careful not to look at the scattered tools still drifting lazily around her ankles, caught in the soft halo of her field. You do not understand what the regulators will do when they sense me. My presence scrambles their calibration. It will not just flicker like the map earlier. They will fail completely. Ethan slowed, turning enough to meet her eyes. Then we move carefully. We do this one step at a time. Lyra let out a soft breath, the motion sending a ripple through the dust hanging in the air. Most people tell me to stay back, she whispered. Most people tell me I make things worse. Ethan shook his head and kept walking. You did not make the deck collapse. You did not make the canyon wind hit harder today. Systems fail. Weather shifts. You just happened to be here when it happened. Lyra hesitated before continuing, her voice barely audible over the hum of the failing power grid. When I was younger, the elders said the planet itself pushed back on me, that my presence upset the world's balance. Ethan glanced at her with a faint, reassuring smile. Sounds to me like the world just forgot how to welcome someone new. A soft flush of silver shimmered across her cheeks, almost like her skin reflected the light differently for a moment. They reached the stairwell door, wedged partially open. Ethan pushed it enough for both to slip through, the metal groaning but holding. The stairwell rose in a narrow spiral, the wind outside whistling through microscopic fractures in the frame. As they climbed, Ethan felt the strange lift again, his body weighing just a little less when Lyra's steps faltered. She noticed and pulled her hands close, trying to contain her field. Sorry, she murmured. I am trying. You are doing fine, Ethan replied. If anything, It is like getting used to a moving walkway at an airport. Just takes a moment to adjust. Lyra blinked, thrown off by the simple comparison, then let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. They reached the next landing, where a narrow maintenance bridge extended across an open shaft. The depth below was impossible to see, swallowed in shadow and drifting dust. Lyra paused, tension gathering in her shoulders. My field reacts strongly when I cross open spaces, she warned. The drop beneath us might amplify it. Ethan tested the bridge with his weight. It creaked, but held steady. Then we stay close, he said calmly. We match our pace and keep our center of gravity aligned. Lyra looked at their linked shadows on the metal grating, both stretched thin by the angled lights. You speak as if you have trained for this. Ethan shrugged lightly. I have worked with unstable platforms before. Just never one that breathes. A small, warm shimmer lit Lyra's eyes. She stepped forward, Ethan beside her. As they crossed, the metal beneath their feet hummed, reacting to the strange pressure shifts of her field. Dust lifted in slow spirals. The faint pull in Ethan's chest returned, almost like the bridge wanted to rise with them. But Ethan's stride remained even, grounding them both. Halfway across, Lyra's hand brushed the rail. The gravity wavered. Ethan felt the moment her confidence dipped. So he spoke, steady as bedrock. Lyra, look at me. You are not breaking anything. The station is adjusting because you are here, not because you are wrong for it. Her breath steadied. The bridge steadied. They reached the other side without a single bolt shifting. For the first time since the collapse, Lyra looked forward instead of down. The corridor beyond the bridge opened into a wide observation deck, its curved windows stretching along the cliffside like a glass spine. Thin cracks webbed across the surface, catching the faded light of the storm clouds rolling in outside. Ethan tested the deck with a careful step. It held, though the soft groan of stressed metal echoed faintly beneath his boots. Lyra followed, her steps light, the air around her shifting just enough to send a loose sheet of paper drifting upward before settling again. The gravity anchor room should be 2 levels above this deck, Ethan said, scanning the dim emergency signage flickering along the wall. If we can reach it, we can override the automatic shutdown. Lyra touched the side of the window, her reflection shimmering beside the fractured glass. My people were never meant to live near cliffs, she murmured. Our fields interact strangely with wide-open gravitational drops. Ethan glanced at the canyon outside. The storm front pressed against the ridge, clouds swirling like slow tornado funnels. Dust spiraled upward rather than down, caught in the unstable currents. Well, Ethan said gently, it looks like the canyon is having a strange day too. A small exhale left her, almost a laugh. The floor beneath them shifted with another tremor. A warning alarm chimed once before sputtering out. Ethan steadied himself, then looked at Lyra. We need to move before the next shift. The anchor room will stabilize everything, including the gravitational pockets. Lyra hesitated. If my field flares inside that room, I could disrupt the entire system. It could shut down completely. Or worse, it could trap us inside. Then we stay aware of your pulse and breathing, Ethan said simply. If the field changes, we adjust. She looked at him with a quiet disbelief. You speak as though this is normal. It is normal, Ethan replied. Because you are here. That makes it part of the situation. Not a problem. Just a variable. Lyra blinked, and something softened in her expression, a quiet warmth almost more fragile than the cracked windows around them. They continued forward. The deck sloped slightly, the tilt growing more noticeable as they approached the far door. Loose dust floated briefly, then settled. Lyra kept her hands close, careful with every step. When they reached the vertical lift, the panel flickered erratically, the display scrambled. Ethan pressed the call button. Sparks danced behind the translucent screen, then the lift doors opened with a shaky slide. The lift car inside leaned slightly off-center, but the rails looked intact. Lyra stopped at the threshold. Ethan, she whispered, if my field reacts in a confined space. Like this, then we adapt, he answered without hesitation. I will anchor your balance. You just focus on breathing. She drew a slow breath, then stepped inside. Ethan joined her, standing close enough to steady her if the lift lurched. The doors closed with a soft click, and the car began to rise, the hum of the motor vibrating through the floor. For a moment, everything was calm. Then Ethan felt it, A soft lift in his stomach as the gravity around Lyra shifted again. The car wobbled gently on its rails, as if unsure whether to rise faster or slower. Lyra caught the handrail, her fingers tightening. "I should not be in here," she whispered. "My pulse is rising. The field is responding." Ethan placed his hand near hers, not touching, just close enough to remind her she was not alone. "Listen," he said quietly. "You are doing everything right. Your field is not hurting anything. It is just reacting to stress." She looked at him, silver eyes reflecting the dim lift lights. The wobble steadied. Her shoulders relaxed. The car continued upward, smoother this time, as if her calm had reached the machinery itself. When the doors opened at the anchor level, Lyra stepped out with a newfound steadiness. For the first time since the collapse began, her field felt quieter, almost cooperative. Ethan noticed. She noticed him noticing. Neither said a word, but the silence between them felt like a turning point, soft and certain. The hallway outside the lift was quieter than the levels below, the hum of machinery steadier, as if this part of the station still remembered how to hold itself together. Ethan stepped out first, scanning the narrow corridor lined with silver conduits that glowed faintly under emergency power. Lyra followed, her steps light, her presence sending a soft ripple through the thin layer of dust on the floor. The particles lifted and hovered for a moment, then settled gently, almost as if respecting her space. "The anchor room should be through that door," Ethan said, pointing toward a reinforced panel marked with a faded maintenance symbol. Lyra studied the symbol, her fingers brushing the air near it. "I have never been near one," she admitted quietly. "My people avoid anything that regulates gravity. Our fields can confuse the readings." Ethan offered a steady nod. "Then we just move slow. Nothing here reacts instantly. It only reacts to extremes." He placed his hand on the door panel. It hissed open with a soft release of pressure, revealing a circular chamber full of suspended coils and glowing stabilizer rings. The air inside shimmered faintly, a sign of the station's weakening gravitational pocket. Lyra stepped to the threshold and stopped. The coils pulsed in slow rhythms, responding to the slightest change in gravitational balance. Her breath caught as several rings flickered when she approached. "Ethan," she said softly, "they are already reacting to me." Ethan turned back to her with calm eyes. "Good. Then we know they are working. Let us study how they respond." He guided her along the outer edge of the room, keeping both of their movements measured. As Lyra moved, the air around her formed a gentle distortion, bending the floating motes of dust into slow spirals that the coils seemed to echo with dim pulses of blue light. She watched the reaction with a mixture of awe and worry. "I have spent my whole life hiding this," she whispered, "and now it is displayed on every surface in this room." "Displayed does not mean dangerous," Ethan said. "It just means visible." She hesitated. "And what do you see?" Ethan studied the soft waves of gravity that radiated from her presence, subtle yet undeniably there. "I see a pattern," he answered. "And patterns can be understood." Her expression shifted, an emotion somewhere between surprise and relief passing through her silver eyes. He approached the main console and pulled up the manual override controls. The display flickered but held. "If we can sync your field with the anchor's baseline frequency, even for a few seconds, the stabilizers will recalibrate," Ethan explained. "You want me to align with the machine?" Lyra asked. "I did not know that was even possible." "Neither did I," Ethan admitted. "But everything the station has done so far suggests that your field does not break the system. It just asks it to adjust." Lyra moved closer to the console, and the moment she did, the coils brightened, glowing in smooth rings of soft blue. It was the gentlest reaction the room had shown. Ethan noticed immediately. "There," he said. "Right there. You see it." Lyra nodded slowly, mesmerized. "It is matching my pulse." Ethan smiled, a warm, steady curve that reflected quiet confidence. "Then let us help it. Stay in rhythm." She closed her eyes, her breathing slowing, and the coils responded with calm pulses. The overhead stabilizer plates, which had been trembling when they first arrived, began to settle. Ethan kept his voice low, grounding. "You are doing it. The room is adjusting to you." Lyra opened her eyes, and for the first time since stepping into the station, her field softened into something almost peaceful. The coils glowed brighter, steady and smooth, reflecting the harmony building between her and the machine. "Ethan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I did not know I could ever feel aligned with anything." Ethan looked at her, the glow of the stabilizers casting soft reflections across her features. "Maybe you were never the one out of balance," he said. "Maybe the world just needed a moment to meet you halfway." And the room, for the first time all day, held completely still. The anchor room remained steady for several quiet seconds, the coils glowing in soft harmony with Lyra's measured breaths. Ethan watched the readings stabilize across the console, the fluctuating values settling into smooth curves that mirrored her pulse. For the first time since the collapse began, the station seemed to exhale. Lyra opened her eyes slowly, as if waking from a moment of fragile equilibrium. The glow around her softened, the gravitational shimmer barely visible now. "Is it really working?" she asked in a hesitant whisper. Ethan studied the monitors again, tapping one of the manual override tabs. "It is holding," he confirmed. "Your field is syncing with the baseline. I think we actually have a stable window." Lyra let out a small breath of disbelief. Her voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something lighter, something unfamiliar. "I did not think I could ever stand in a place like this without breaking it." Ethan gave a gentle shrug. "Looks like this place is learning how to stand with you." Before she could respond, a soft hum trembled through the floor, not violent, just a reminder of the wider station's condition. The stabilization was improving, but they were not finished. Ethan turned toward the secondary control ring, where a thicker coil rotated slowly around a central axis. Its light flickered irregularly, struggling to maintain the new balance. "This regulator is still out of sync," he said. "If we can reinforce the frequency match, we can lock the station into a full recalibration." Lyra stepped closer, watching as the coil pulsed unevenly. "It is reacting to my field differently," she murmured. "It is slower, almost hesitant." "Then we guide it," Ethan said. "Machines like this respond to patterns. You already started the alignment. Let us help it finish." Lyra approached the coil, the air around her shifting in small waves that nudged the floating dust into gentle arcs. The coil flickered again, then steadied, then flickered once more as if undecided. Ethan watched her stance, how she focused not with force but with intention, her breathing deep and even. The coil responded, but inconsistently. Lyra frowned. "It is not aligning fully. Something is resisting the connection." Ethan scanned the secondary readout. The numbers jumped in small oscillations, neither dangerous nor stable. "It might need a grounding reference," he said. "Something to anchor the frequency. Something constant." Lyra turned toward him slowly. "You mean you?" Ethan nodded once. "Your field reacts to me, and the anchors react to your field. If you hold my hand, the regulator might read the combined rhythm as a single stable pattern." Lyra hesitated. "Ethan, if my field spikes, then I stay steady," he said, voice calm and certain. Just like before. She looked at his hand for a long moment, then reached out. The instant their palms met, the air shifted. The coil brightened slightly, pulsing in a smoother rhythm. The readings steadied. Even the faint tremor in the floor eased. Lyra's voice softened. "It is aligning." Ethan kept his breathing slow, letting her match it. Her field responded in gentle waves, no longer erratic or unsure. The coil's pulses grew more consistent, the hum in the room smoothing into a single, even tone. Lyra watched the light with wonder. "It feels different with you," she admitted quietly. "Not lighter, not heavier, just clearer." Ethan met her gaze, steady and warm. "Good. Then we keep going." For a brief moment, the room seemed suspended in perfect balance, the machinery and Lyra's presence merging into something almost harmonious. The stabilizer coil reached full alignment, its glow bright and unwavering. The console confirmed it a second later, a gentle chime signaling the largest part of the station's gravity system had fully recalibrated. Lyra stared at the display, her voice barely audible. "I have never aligned with anything in my life." Ethan gave her hand a small, grounding squeeze. "You just did." The silence that followed was not empty. It was steady. It was real. And for the first time, Lyra stood in a room built to control gravity without the world pulling away from her. The steady hum of the aligned stabilizer filled the anchor room like a quiet heartbeat, calm and confident. Lyra held Ethan's hand a moment longer, as if testing the reality of the balance they had created. When she finally released him, her field remained calm, the shimmering distortions around her barely visible. Ethan checked the console once more. The readings held steady across every sensor. "We bought the station some time," he said. "Enough to get out or run a full reset. Maybe both." Lyra stepped back, studying the coils with a mix of awe and disbelief. "I did not think something built to control gravity would ever accept me." Ethan gave a small, reassuring smile. "Maybe it did not accept you. Maybe it realized it needed you." Lyra's expression softened, but before she could respond, another tremor rolled through the ceiling. This one was different. Not the chaotic sway of failing supports, but a deep shift, like the station had changed its weight distribution entirely. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Ethan frowned and tapped the secondary monitor. "That was not a collapse," he murmured. "That felt like a system reaction." Lyra stepped beside him. "A reaction to what?" Ethan scanned the readings. One data line pulsed in slow intervals, out of rhythm with the others. His brow tightened. "The upper stabilizers. They are compensating for something above us." Another tremor followed, softer this time, as if the structure was adjusting under a new gravitational pull. Lyra's voice dropped. "Ethan, my field is not causing that." "I know," Ethan said. His voice did not show fear, just concentration. "This is external." A soft alarm chimed from the console. Not a danger alarm. A proximity alert. Ethan leaned in. The display blinked with a faint outline moving across the canyon ridge outside the station. Something large. Something steady. Lyra watched the outline, and her breath caught. "That is not weather," she whispered. The anchor room's window looked out over the canyon edge. Ethan crossed the room and wiped the dusty glass with his sleeve. The storm clouds were shifting, not swirling randomly, but bending in arcs around. A silhouette hovering above the ridge. A craft, smooth and iridescent, shaped like flowing water suspended midair. It emitted no flame, no sound, but the air around it shimmered in soft pulses that Lyra recognized instantly. "It is from my homeworld," she said quietly. "The design is unmistakable." Ethan turned toward her. "Are they here to evacuate you?" Lyra shook her head slowly, dread mixing with certainty. "No. Crafts like that do not retrieve. They track. They evaluate anomalies." Ethan understood immediately. "They detected your field spike." Lyra's voice thinned. "And now they want to know why." Another soft pulse rippled through the station as the craft adjusted its position, the air bending slightly around its hull. "Ethan," Lyra whispered, "they might try to bring me in. They might believe I destabilized this place." Ethan stepped closer, grounding his tone. "You saved this place. You saved me. My people may not see it that way." The stabilizer coils hummed, steady and calm, a stark contrast to the tension rising in her voice. Ethan watched the craft outside, then looked back at her. "Whatever happens next, you are not facing it alone." Lyra met his gaze, her field shimmering faintly around her, not from fear, but from the weight of his words. The tremor of the world outside quieted as the strange craft descended, its light bending the canyon air in slow spirals. The station held steady, but Lyra felt the pull of her past closing in. The shimmering craft outside the observation window drifted closer, its surface rippling like liquid metal shaped by invisible tides. Lyra stood perfectly still, her breath held tight in her chest as the familiar resonance from the vessel pulsed across the canyon. The air inside the anchor room vibrated in response, not violently, but with a quiet authority that made the stabilizer coils shiver. Ethan watched her carefully. "Tell me what that type of craft means," he said softly. Lyra's eyes remained fixed on the silhouette hovering beyond the fractured glass. "That is a Sentinel-class observer," she said. "They monitor gravitational anomalies and retrieve individuals whose fields become unstable." Ethan stepped beside her. "Retrieve, as in relocate." Lyra shook her head slowly. "Retrieve, as in reassess. Evaluate. Determine whether an individual poses a risk to themselves or others." Her voice was barely audible. "Their decisions are final." Ethan absorbed that, his eyes narrowing slightly, not in anger, but in focus, the kind that tightened when a system required calm hands. The vessel emitted another pulse. The stabilizer coils flickered, then steadied again, adjusting to the foreign gravity wavelength pressing against the station. They are scanning, Lyra whispered. They will detect my signature. Ethan turned to her. Your field was stable when it mattered. You prevented the station from falling apart. They should see that. Lyra wrapped her arms lightly around herself. Sentinels do not interpret. They measure. All they will see is irregularity. The craft lowered another few feet, sending a soft tremor through the floor. Ethan studied the console and noticed a new reading appearing in the corner of the display, a foreign energy signature, locked onto a single point inside the station. Lyra noticed it too. They are tracking me directly, she murmured. They will expect me to step outside voluntarily. Ethan looked toward the stairwell. What if you do not? Lyra's expression tightened, the shimmer of her field subtly lifting a few grains of dust near her boots. If I do not comply, they can activate a containment pull. It is not harmful, but it overrides personal gravity. I would be drawn upward toward the vessel whether I wanted to or not. Ethan paused, thinking. And what about the station? It will not withstand a containment pull, Lyra said. The gravity shift would ripple through every anchor. The structure would fail. Ethan's jaw set with quiet resolve. Then they cannot use it. Lyra looked at him, alarm flickering behind her silver eyes. Ethan, you cannot stop a Sentinel-class ship. I do not need to stop the ship, he replied. I just need them to see something accurate. She blinked. Accurate. Ethan gestured toward the stabilized coils. Your field synced with the anchors. The station is stable because of you, not in spite of you. If they are here to evaluate you, then they should evaluate what you actually did. Lyra shook her head, fear creeping into her voice. They will not believe a human's interpretation. Ethan stepped closer, not touching, but close enough for his voice to steady her pulse. Then we do not give them interpretation. We give them data. She stared at him, unsure. Ethan activated the console's broadcast relay. The room's sensors lit up, sending a full diagnostic record to the external beacon. Every waveform, every alignment, every moment her field stabilized. The anchors. They will see you aligned with the system, Ethan said. They will see the station steady because of you. Lyra's breath trembled. They will also see the initial spikes. Ethan nodded. Yes, but they will see the outcome too. Machines understand outcomes. She looked toward the window again. The Sentinel craft paused midair as the data stream reached it. The shimmering hull shifted color, deepening into a more reflective sheen as it processed the transmission. Lyra's hands trembled slightly. Ethan, what if they still call me in? Ethan's voice was quiet, almost an anchor itself. Then I will stand with you. Whatever they ask, whatever they decide, you will not face it alone. Lyra turned toward him, her field softening in a slow wave that gently bent the air between them. No one has ever said that to me, she whispered. Another pulse came from the vessel, this one different. Softer, slower, almost curious. The station did not tremble. The coils held steady. Lyra's heart pounded, not from fear, but from something impossibly new. The Sentinel was no longer scanning. It was waiting. The Sentinel hovered in absolute stillness, its iridescent hull reflecting the storm clouds now beginning to thin above the canyon. The vessel's soft pulses no longer pressed against the station. Instead, they drifted like gentle breaths, as if the craft itself was considering what it had just learned. Inside the anchor room, Lyra stood close to the window, shoulders lifted with quiet tension. Her reflection wavered in the fractured glass, the faint shimmer of her gravitational field almost perfectly calm. Ethan stepped beside her, his voice low and steady. They are analyzing the data. Give them a moment. She nodded, though her fingers curled slightly against the windowsill. Sentinels are not known for patience. The fact that they have not activated a containment pull yet, it is unusual. The coils behind them hummed in a perfect rhythm, a soft reminder of the equilibrium she had created. Ethan glanced at the stabilizers, then back at her. Maybe today is unusual. Another pulse came from the vessel, this one different from all the others. The canyon wind shifted direction, then settled. Dust lifted gently, not from chaos, but from curiosity, swirling in a slow, delicate spiral that drifted toward the station. Lyra inhaled, recognizing the pattern. They are signaling, she whispered. Ethan stepped closer. What does it mean? Lyra watched the slow, looping pulse that radiated from the Sentinel. It is a query. They are asking for confirmation. They want to know if the stabilizer alignment truly came from me. Ethan touched the console, replaying the key moments of the alignment sequence. The readings lit across the anchor room's monitors in a soft cascade, projecting outward to the vessel. Every waveform showed her pulse syncing, not destabilizing. Every metric reflected harmony, not disruption. When the final line transmitted, Lyra felt the floor steady beneath her feet, almost as if the station itself recognized what she had accomplished. The Sentinel shifted color again, its surface deepening into a warm, reflective teal. Lyra's voice trembled. That is an acknowledgement tone. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Acknowledgement of what? Lyra turned to him slowly, her expression a mixture of disbelief and emotional weight. That I am not a threat. That I am stable. Ethan allowed a quiet, relieved breath. Good. Then they will leave you in peace. But Lyra's eyes held a complexity he did not yet understand. She looked out the window at the shimmering vessel. Sentinels do not travel alone, she murmured. This one tracked me because my gravitational field was irregular. But now that it has seen the alignment, it may mark me as something else. Ethan studied her tone. Something else. Lyra stepped away from the window, her field soft and steady. They may classify me as a vectorial harmonizer. Ethan tilted his head. And what does that mean? The word left her lips like a truth she had waited years to understand. Someone whose gravitational field does not disrupt the world, but guides it. Someone who aligns with systems instead of fracturing them. Ethan's expression softened. Lyra, that is exactly what you did today. Lyra looked at him, silver eyes bright with emotion. But harmonizers are not common. They are not feared or hidden. They are chosen. They are meant to serve as liaisons, bridges between our people and the worlds we visit. Ethan let the meaning settle. So the Sentinel is not here to take you away. No, she whispered. It may be here to recognize me. Outside, the vessel emitted a final pulse, gentle and warm. A column of soft light descended, not toward the station, but toward the canyon floor, a signal of respect rather than retrieval. Then, with a graceful arc, the Sentinel lifted, rising above the ridge until it disappeared into the fading storm. The anchor room grew quiet. The station remained perfectly steady. Lyra turned to Ethan, her voice barely audible. They saw me as I am. Ethan held her gaze, steady as bedrock. I did too. Her field shimmered around her, a soft glow bending the air in a peaceful wave. For the first time in her life, it did not push the world away. It simply existed, balanced, accepted. And in the stillness that followed, Lyra whispered the truth that had lived unspoken between them since the moment Ethan caught her above the canyon. You were the first person who did not step back from my gravity. And somehow you helped me find it. Ethan smiled gently, the quiet kind that held meaning instead of words. The station hummed in perfect equilibrium around them. The world, for once, did not pull her in any direction. It simply held them both, steady in the same place.